So I look like a mess. I was informed that there is a new Domino Dingus doc. If I sound weird, that's because I'm currently sick. I don't know what I have. It could be hay fever. It could just be the common cold. But it is what it is. So let's read the doc together, everybody. So we have this, right? Summary TLDR for the entire document response. I'd like to apologize for how unprofessional the first doc was. Well, it's not an exact excuse. The first doc was written by another person. It was also written with the intense emotions climbing the way it was written. Not even that, you lied about hypnosis. There's no way for you to lie about hypnosis. First of all, Nominal Dingus bringing a lawyer for this felt more like a threat to silence us rather than to defend himself. Once again, you just immediately do the same thing with intense emotion and then try to give an emotional thing right here. If somebody is dealing with the okay, if somebody is dealing with the idea of a sexual assault allegation, which is a criminal charge, by the way, I think that you might need a lawyer. Is that not fair? It's kind of stupid to say that this person bring in a lawyer when you were accusing them of 2 criminal charges, harassment and sexual assault. Of course they're going to bring in a lawyer. I would bring in a lawyer. Sorry for the cut. I'm going to be cutting a lot because I will be coughing sometimes. But then they say, secondly, the type of hypnosis Nominal brought up in his response is not the correct one. It doesn't matter. The hypnosis is not a real one. The victim, the one the victim used was their own, which works thanks to their susceptible mental state, which makes it so that the simple belief of it working is enough. This is okay. So this is movie logic. I'm sorry to say this. This is once again just trying to go and try to justify movie logic. There is no way for a person to control you through hypnosis. It is pseudoscience, and that's what is agreed upon. It doesn't work like that. What the Jesus? We're only this in, and it's trying to justify a bullshit claim. Like, what are you talking about? That's not, it doesn't matter what type of hypnosis, because most of them are pseudoscience. The one that you're talking about and the one that is claimed and how it is a pseudoscience. They got scammed. Let's go and skip over C word. Along with him using it over 120 times when he was only given permission to use it 5 times. Doesn't matter for him to use it 120 times and for him to be allowed to do that. The person would have to allow him to do that every single time. There is no way for this once again to happen without the person agreeing to that. He also brought up that he was denied access, but denied having it removed. Tried to deflect by saying Hunter was unknown when he knew Hunter by bringing up him and one of his friend. Caucasian side was shown with the screenshot and downplaying what he did and admitted what he did. Yeah, that's whatever. Even it doesn't really matter whether he admitted or not. The thing is that the allegations are still absolute bullshit, because you would have to agree with like movie level logic of that hypnosis. We already covered that. I already keep on saying it from the previous video. For those who don't know how hypnosis works, it brings out the subconscious into the conscious. Any other type of hypnosis is absolute malarkey and doesn't exist in real life. There's no evidence to suggest it, or the evidence is so shaky and widely contested by everybody in the field that it's like you might as well just be believing in magic. We can skip basically all this. Basically, it's saying that he acted explosive with all that, but it's like okay, let's say he acted explosive. He had anger issues, which we could see right here. You're trying to build it off of this. I would be fucking explosive as well if you went and tried to do anything of this bullshit. And then we have the whole thing of he's trying to deflect and trying to silence us, because obviously if you bring up a false allegation that doesn't really matter and was 100% false, if you bring in a lawyer against that false allegation, that's trying to silence you. Oh, yeah. that it just means that this thing is still doing the same thing of that it's still unprofessional and it still doesn't know what it's talking about. I suggest these people actually get a lawyer so that they can formalize stuff instead of just trying to go and justify them making a bunch of claims that don't really make any sense with science or reality. Let's go back to this. When it came to the hypnosis side of the doc, Nominal had attempted to deflect any type of strange uses of hypnosis by showing an interaction with the victim in which they agreed. Because all hypnosis needs to be agreed that it was a fetish, but Nominal had failed to mention that they were only given 5 uses of hypnosis actively and ignored 120 times when he utilized the word. It's okay, doesn't really matter. Once again, you're talking about movie level hypnosis, not the actual real hypnosis. It should also be brought to the attention that alongside the usage of the word over hundreds of times when he was allowed, when it was being removed, he actively declines and continues his uses of their hypnosis. Doesn't matter. Once again, it keeps on trying to push this fake idea of hypnosis. Well, they did agree here that it is a fetish. It's still a tool. Okay, it doesn't really matter. You got scammed. You got scammed out of the hypnosis. That's pretty much all it is. You're believing in pseudoscience and you're having a placebo effect. That's what's happening here. It brings that it doesn't work is a faulty point. Everyone is unique. It doesn't fucking matter. The hypnosis doesn't work. It doesn't work. This is the point that now it brings up that hypnosis doesn't work, and instead a role play fetish and purely to including therapy. It's because it doesn't fucking work. What are you talking about? He attempts to deflect the existence of a person known as Hunter, saying, "Who is he? What did he do?" And while it is our fault for not including him, the fullest detail as the victim's hypnotist, it should be noticed that Nominal knows full well who Hunter and attempted to sweep the involvement under rug, calls Hunter unknown, but clearly mentions his name several times, the when it is. Once again, this is completely irrelevant. This response to the hypnosis doesn't really make much sense because this is not how hypnosis works. I'll go ahead and show that he's a close friend regarding. So, Han, I'm having there's something wrong here. Did they tell him who the hypnotist was? Or is this like they knew the person and they were giving them hypnosis treatment because that's something else? And then they literally have the thing. Hypnotherapy does not take away the willpower of those under it. Yeah, it's like this. This is from, I think that this is from his thing, but it's like a contradiction would actually be your own words, since in a conversation, callers blah 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 blah. It doesn't really even matter. That's not how hypnosis works. It will never work like that unless you want to believe in movie level logic. That's not how hypnosis will ever work. Hypnosis is not an actual thing. Hypnotherapy is widely contested. It's like chiropractic. So we're just gonna go skip past that because in the original doc, they literally bring up like, hey, the actual healthcare medical professionals, and then just completely ignored that. I don't know why they're trying to do that and why they're trying to go and push this straight up lie, because like I said, it's widely contested of whether or not it actually even is a real thing. Kind of like, you know, the like it is. It's basically the acupuncture and the chiropractic of like mental health treatment. So it's mostly placebo. I don't know why they keep on trying to push it. It tries to go and support the harassment claim, but I'm reading like all these and I'm like, okay, this doesn't really show much. It talks about his interaction, but like he blows up here and it's like, this doesn't really prove the case of harassment. I don't think that this person knows what harassment is, because none of this is harassment. It's him, like, there's a difference between the claim of like being explosive and being an asshole and harassment. Harassment is constantly pestering somebody when they made it clear that they don't want to interact with you under reasonability. If the person does have the ability to block your ass, then that puts it on the person that is the supposed victim. That's what it is. Unless it's like constant parading of insults and the information that we have here and the information that is given over here, there is no such thing of harassment. So I don't really know what that is. It doesn't even go into a thing of like going from like online into real life, which then you could make a case for, but like that's that there's no case of harassment here. I'm trying to like see anything of it, but there's nothing. So let's look at the conclusion. This would be libel if all the information that we were sharing was untrue. Well, you did say two untrue statements: the harassment statement and the hypnosis statement. You did not cross-verify with actual like stuff. Like you straight up said a lie about hypnosis. It takes like 5 seconds to actually research how hypnosis works, and you didn't. And now you're trying to go and defend that you didn't actually vent the fake victim, and now you're trying to say, well, he's trying to silence us. I would do the exact same thing with this document that is way overdue. We shown that isn't. Well, no, you didn't. You showed zero. You restated stuff, and then you tried to bring irrelevant conversations like that proved anything. It's still a fake document. It's still fake claims. That's not how it works. You didn't go and understand how hypnosis works. You didn't understand what a harassment claim is. And you bring in irrelevant stuff. What are you talking about? It makes me mad because these are actual legal claims that can go and destroy a person. And especially when you go and just haphazardly have it and try to connect the puzzle pieces afterwards when there is none. Yeah, he's gonna go and be mad. I'm mad at that. You didn't show anything. There's no response here. Like, you're gonna need a lot more to go and have the hypnosis claim than it just being like, well, we're gonna ignore that and say that the person is mentally susceptible. It's like, yeah, but that's not how it works in reality. If you want to go and make a fake reality of this is how the hypnosis works, go ahead. But like, you basically have to ignore the medical conclusion of what is the non-placebo, non-fake hypnosis thing to go and say that that's a victim. Then you would also have to not understand what harassment is and not understand that the victim has to take certain steps and bring in this irrelevant conversation that doesn't really show much to go and say that was harassment. Like, you're gonna need a lot more to go and have the hypnosis claim than it just being like, well, we're gonna ignore that and say that the person is mentally susceptible. It's like, yeah, but that's not how it works in reality. If you want to go and make a fake reality of this is how the hypnosis works, go ahead. But like, you basically have to ignore the medical conclusion of what is the non-placebo, non-fake hypnosis thing to go and say that that's a victim. Then you would also have to not understand what harassment is and not understand that the victim has to take certain steps and bring in this irrelevant conversation that doesn't really show much to go and say that was harassment. So all that to basically say nothing, all that to go and bring absolute garbage, all that to go and talk about fake hypnotism and try to say, well, the person was still resisting it. That's not how it works. The person just like I said, the person probably got duped by a fake hypnotist. That's probably what happened. And then they have a placebo effect. And then they're probably like those people that say, oh, well, I have undiagnosed ADHD. It's just dumb. You know, the people on the internet, everybody knows those types of people on the internet. Unfortunately, the first response to this is still ass, because you would still need to go and believe the fakeness of the hypnotism claim and then not understand what harassment is. So now we get into the new information of this. His anger, sexism, and harassism of others. Let me just show you right here. This is the evidence. The person claiming that he might have sexism because he's angry in this conversation for some fucking reason. And then this thing in which they're actually joking around and both of them are like insulting each other plainly. Oh my God, that proves so fucking much. You know, if I joke around with somebody and say I'm not a fucking angel, that proves that I'm just this angry person, even though that they were joking along with me. Let's ignore that the first part of the conversation is talking about grandmas spawning out of nowhere like there's something coming from the earth. Let's just ignore that that's the tone of the conversation. So yeah, pretty much nothing from that. But you want to know what's worse? They're clearly grasping at straws. And this is where I know that this doc is just meant to be malicious and not actually something of care, and that they're definitely not vetting anybody, is when they go and try to say that a relationship, whether that be sexual or whatever, a relationship with a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old is bad because they were being sexual towards each other. Which I don't know about you, but in Canada, UK, most of Europe, and the United States are all considered legal, even with these sexual actions. And for most people, if you're in that 2-year age range, there's no problem. Because if you want to say that there's a problem with that, you also have to say that there's a problem with an 18 and a 17-year-old. But then you would say that's stupidly ridiculous. The reason why we give the 2 years age gap is because there's not enough mental maturity between those two and not enough physical difference between those two as well. Whether or not he was sexual, I'll leave that up to you. Doesn't fucking matter if the person agrees to relationships and that. Now, this is pretty much the only thing in this part of the doc that is like actually substantial, but it's such a minor thing where he crashes out with a person that's trying to be his friend. But I don't know the conversation that came up that was part of this, so I don't know. But he just crashes out and he just basically says a bunch of fuck off stuff, right? But that's like the least of the shit. Like that. This is the you were able to prove that he got angry at a 15-year-old and crashed out. Oh my god! You want a cookie? Everything else is whatever. If the only thing that you can prove that like I'm willing to even take is a person crashing out at a 15-year-old, what am I supposed to do there? That's whatever. It's like, okay, you got him angry right there. Okay. What do you want? You want me to bow and be like, oh, everything is true now. All right, sex pest allegations. Let's see if there's anything substantial here. Well, the victim does share stories of things they did in VC. Okay, well, you had your camera on and was getting uncomfortable from his compliments. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. I'm assuming that this is this person. So we have a statement. Okay, so they willingly joked with it. So you have this, and then you have them joking. You have this. You said I might turn around, and make it clap, huh? And then you have another joke thing. You have a wink. He needs mouth to ass. Pulls out the Assassinator 5000. This just seems like a poorly timed joke. Like if the person is uncomfortable with this, who's okay? First of all, who sexually says you need mouth to ass resuscitation? That's a Family Guy reference, by the way, if you don't know. And the Assassinator 5000. Who tries to be like that while being sexual? This is stretching it a little bit. This I could see, but like there's not with this. This kind of destroys the credibility of that. Also, this is weirdly formatted. I don't know if this is like the person was fine with this over here because like that clearly, or it's the person was fine over here with this. Right? That I can't tell if it's for this one or this one because okay, it might be this one or this one. I really can't tell. You put a weird demarcation line right here and you said, yes, we know the person was fine with this. Which person? Tell me. I'm assuming that the demarcation line, but like you can make a case for this as well. So you have one that's nothing, and then you tell me, okay, one that's nothing. I'm assuming, yeah, it's in part. So you have, yes, we know the person was fine with this, and so that we can just completely ignore this. So then you have one piece of evidence of this. one valid piece of evidence of a person. But let's actually read it, right? He's sending his ass out of nowhere. Yeah, ass is ass. I like ass, especially if it wobbles, gang. Okay, wait, hold on. Wait. So the person sends it, and then you say that you like it. I understand that it's weird, and I understand that's like that, but you can't say you like it. You have equal problem. But let's read this, right? The gang, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect you, which is definitely a big problem now that I'm realizing it, and you probably don't know, or probably I have. Wait. Yeah, two boyfriends. Yeah, but if I ever see that, I never see them again. Okay. First of all, we're not gonna touch upon that. Yeah, so you said that you like it, and then you backtrack and you say, "Well, I'm poly. We might mess up our relationship." What is this? What is? You can't say like, "Oh, well, this is a problem," and then everybody is basically fine with it and playing along with the fucking jokes. Like what? I can't say that this is valid. Like pretty much the only thing that's in here that's actually substantial is this thing about, well, he acted weird 3 times, and then they talk about it, and it's like, okay, it's like whatever. And they're saying that he did it with hallucinations. I don't know. I'm gonna go and say I believe that, but then I'm not gonna believe the non-consensual part to that. There's 2 reasons for that. You can block them, and they don't know what non-consent is because of that hypnosis thing. So I'm trying to be generous here, but when you have people going along with it and then backtracking, that's a problem. That's them being like, "Oh, I like that," and then you go and then they backtrack, being like, "Wait, no, I'm actually in a relationship." Did you not think to start with that? And then you have a thing of them saying, "Well, this person's okay with it," and then you have another person being like, "Oh, well, I was uncomfortable right here, but then I'm not uncomfortable here." The where it's like the person makes a weird joke like that, where it's like ass to mouth resuscitation, and it's like I make very similar jokes with my brother. Am I being sexual towards my brother? No. It would be dumb to say that. It's stretching it way too far, and I can't really. There's no evidence of a sex pest. Can he be sexual? Yeah. Does he try with everybody? Yeah, but that's not a sex pest. A sex pest would do it constantly, and you would have way more than this. Think of Quagmire, right? Where usually it's an actual manipulation to get sex, not like, "Oh, we're gonna do some role play," or, "Oh, I'm gonna make a sex joke." Okay, on to the thing with the minors. Okay, I like how I gotta point out that like they're trying to say that this person got nudes from them, which I understand is a crime, specifically in America. I don't know if the 17-year-old is in America as well. Just because it's online, we don't know who they are, where they are. But the thing is that the person doing it as well, the person procuring it under many of these state laws, the would be just as liable. When you bring in the illegality thing, you better be like very prepared to go and actually argue for it. I had this thing with harmful opinions. You can go check out that video in which he went and tried to say I was dumb, but it turns out I was right. That is because when you go and look at the law, it's pretty clear about it, but you have to be looking at it with extreme precision. This would actually depend on what state it is. Now, it doesn't mean that it's illegal in every state. As far as I'm concerned, it is illegal. The problem is that depending on what state it is, the 17-year-old that produced it as well, even with a consensual, is just as liable. So if we want to play this legality claim, the person is just as liable. But let's say that this person is not in the United States. Let's say it's in Canada. Well, that becomes a problem because now it's like, you have Canada, which allows the sharing of that, by the way, with a relationship, but the United States doesn't have it. So you would have to go search his computer and all that and do a whole bunch of stuff in which it doesn't really make any sense. And if he deletes it, there would be no case for that. There's so many ways out of this, and there's so many ways in which it goes both ways, saying that it's illegal on his part and not understanding that it could also be illegal on the 17-year-old's part. It is just extremely dishonest. And especially when you think about it, most people are not going to bat an eye with two people that are in a reasonable age, even if the person is a minor, having a sexual relationship. Like, for me, I cannot go and find it in my heart, in my morality, to say that, oh yeah, these two people can legally have sex in most states. There's only a few states that are outside this. Legally have sex in most states. Legally have sex in most countries. Though even through like countries that have pretty strict consent laws and all that. But then yet if they sex, it's oh my god, oh my god. Like, I consider sex probably on a higher tier than just sending a sexual image. At least that's to me. Like, I think that that's a failure of the law to actually understand that, and I actually agree with Canadian law a little bit more, even though that they're way relaxed with a 5-year age gap. But that's neither here nor there. My point is that when it comes to stuff like this, it doesn't really make a good point, because it's so dependent on location, and it's dependent on these people's location, that you wouldn't really be able to say much of that. You know, then we have a thing of, even the victim says it's like it's being weird to a minor, which that's not enough to be like, raise your pitchforks, everybody. Because it's like, if that's the case, then we have to go at the Call of Duty people that make minors cry on the internet. It's like, you can't make a point out of that. So my problem here is that this entire thing shows nothing of what they claim. And then they immediately have to go and try to give a nonsensical argument, right? They go and try to claim grooming the victim to be into being close with them. Okay, first of all, you don't know what the word is grooming means, so don't try to do that. Grooming, in most contexts, is sexual. Yes, I understand grooming can be done in other ways, but the problem is that those ways do not represent in verbal, usually that they're nonverbal, and it's a whole other thing. It gets into a way deeper conversation about human psychology, which neither of us are anyway, anywhere, anyhow credible enough to speak. So I'm not going to touch upon that. We're just going to go and close that out. Like I said, neither of us, victims, Nominal, me, Dockmaker, are credible enough to go and decide what is grooming. The only one that is clearly obvious in which anybody can be credible and talk about is when it comes to sexual stuff, because it's so overtly obvious. Grooming the victim into being close with them is a nonsensical statement at best. It's trying to use words to manipulate you into thinking that this is way worse than it actually is. This is what we call trying to make friends on the internet. Now, whether or not you say that a 20-year-old should be trying to make friends with a 14-year-old is completely different, but if there's nothing there, I can't really do much. Especially when they go and try to insinuate that it's a different type of grooming, saying that it was a minor, and then completely contradict the statement later on. And that, you know, it's not a sexual one. So the problem here is that they're trying to use the word grooming as it's a trump card statement. But the problem is that, as far as I can see, it's not really grooming. They're having conversations that are normal. They're talking about it. They're arguing about different actions. The only one that is actually pushing for actions in this entire conversation that are actually meaningful was that _1. So the only person that would be even applicable for a grooming action would be that _1, which doesn't really make much sense, because then it would be the victim that's grooming. So it doesn't, like, I don't know what they're trying to push here. It's lazy, it's crap, it doesn't really do much. Like, it's it pains me that this is still so bad that they say that they got like better people to write this, but I highly doubt that you had the money to do that. They try to bring in a nonsensical argument to bring it up once again. Like, I can understand that, like, this thing of like he shouldn't be talking to a 12 or 13-year-old, but that doesn't mean that is grooming. Talking to somebody of like that, I would need way more than this than to go and make that decision. This is not grooming. There's no reason for Nominal should be talking to someone this young. They're on the internet. How you literally can't escape it. I have probably talked or argued with like 16-year-olds or 5-year-olds on the internet. There is no way or shape or form that you can avoid it. These are all the screenshots the victim had since they do not have access to the account. So you have just this is the only screenshot? Ugh. Seems like a lazy excuse to me. They go and try to say that others that they try to bring in like the whole thing of like we're dismissing them in the age, but the thing is that it doesn't really matter. You're gonna get this. It doesn't matter. You're gonna be interacting with minors on the internet. You probably argued with them in the comments on YouTube. Do I say that you were a groomer or you're a bully or you're a harasser? Or what do I say? It's nonsensical to hold this standard of you can never interact with them. It's like, and like, wait, what are you supposed to do then on the internet? Just hide in a corner? I can understand that you don't want that level of interaction, but trying to act like this is grooming is stupid. The rest of the document pretty much goes and tries to hold this like random standard, which I understand that you could be like, that's weird, but it's not an actual point in like a true interaction with a minor. Like just this thing, like you shouldn't be talking with a minor, even if it's platonic, right then and there. You cannot go and say that standard. I can understand these, like I said, you can say it's weird or whatever, but it's not an actual real point when it comes to interactions with minors. Like and once again, it goes against this. Like, if you're 18 or older, you shouldn't have friendships with somebody that's under 14. Okay, so this is gonna go back. When I was playing Super Smash Brothers, I was interacting with minors all the time because it's a kids game. I've trained with a person to go in tournaments. Am I now acting weirdly with minors? Am I? No, it would be dumb. We were just training partners because we wanted to go into tournaments. There was a person that was older than me, 30. Like, he's way outside of my age range. He's way older than me now. But was he trying to go and manipulate us? No, you could say it's weird, but like at the end of the day, it's whatever. This isn't a good point. This isn't an actual point. You're trying to go and say he did this, therefore, oh my god, it's this oogie boogie man. But there's no connection. You're just trying to push a standard out with your chest and be like, it is not good. Like, you remember that SpongeBob meme with him just like this, just buff as a Greek god? Pretty much they're just trying to play that off and just act like it's a good point. It's not. I can't. What are you trying to get at? Person interacted with the minor. Nothing happened. Oh, it must be grooming. Person interacted with the minor. Nothing happened. Clearly platonic. Oh my god, you still shouldn't be interacting. This man cannot win. And then when we get to like the toppy thing, once again, it's just trying to push the whole thing of like grooming. It's so fucking dumb. But let's actually go with it, right? So let's go from the top down, right? So we have this, he's interacting, you have this, you have that. Normal so far, tries to push the grooming allegations. It's not the... But this is where I start to question did we just like skip over like 25 days or something like that? Because it's weird, but there's an animation depicting grape, right? And a character from a logo. What happened? Who sent what? Please give me more information. You cannot honestly go and try to push a accusation and say, hey, this happened, and you don't give any type of information. This is so extremely fishy. It's so fucking fishy. Something that is actually like that is like, if he sent this, that is actually a crime. But if the other person sent it, then it's, you know, somebody else's fault. But if he sent it, that's an actual crime, because you're delivering sexual images to a person, not in a relationship, but also way outside of the age range that is acceptable, at least in the United States. But it seems like that's not what happened. It seems like that got sent, and then he caused this, because it says that caused Nominal to draw this, which means that how this is worded seems that Poppy sent it. You're very sneaky with that. Very, very sneaky. And then we have just a bunch of accusations where he's like, oh, he feels like he's very pedophilic. It's like, okay, what does a pedophile feel like to you? I'm assuming this is one of the interviewers. What is this? You're just throwing shit on him? I can't really take your statement. And then I'm reading this, and like, yeah, obviously, like, they're trying to portray like he's acting weird, but like the only weird thing here is like he has a mental breakdown in 2023, and that's pretty much what happened. Like, you can literally see that, please leave me the fuck alone now, bye. Like, what am I can't get much here. Like, what is your point? You don't have a point. You're saying this is weird, and then that's it. Literally my exact point in my previous video. It's like, oh, well, he can be weird, he can be self-destructive, he can be like an ass sometimes, but that isn't really like this oh my god thing, like what people are trying to pretend. Like, I can't, like, this isn't really a situation. What this is trying to go and exaggerate situations once again. Another thing is, for the IB nerdy situation, he has another like mental breakdown, right? And you can see that clearly. This is great job having it with maturity, but he has another mental breakdown and is like, he shuts down a bunch of stuff, and it's like, yeah, eventually he does like give people their money back and all that, but like the situation is, I think Nominal might have like some mental illnesses, probably depression and anger problems, but that is very different than having interactions with minors, being a sex pest, and sexual assault and like harassment. Like, all those claims are so bad. I'm going to end it off with this. If you have to exaggerate claims and say, well, this is grooming, this is this, you don't actually have a point. This document, while it may be long, still fucking sucks ass. And I doubt that you actually had like a professional, or you did it yourself. The problem here is that it still does the same exact thing that it did in the first document. Make a claim without actually understanding the terms. It still pushes the sexual assault thing, which it fails to understand that's not how hypnosis works. Otherwise, they're talking about pseudoscience. It still fails to understand with the harassment claim, there was nothing there. What you need to do for that to be an actual harassment claim is that he needs to do something way greater than act like an ass. Keep in mind, the victim has a block button, which is the bare minimum. Both are legal claims, by the way, and both should be taken into court. And I hope that you do get sued into the ground over that, because that's absolutely idiotic. Then you go and try to talk about, oh, well, he's weird, and try to act like that means something with minors. You also make another legal claim without actually understanding the nuance of it when it comes to CSAM. And while there is the thing of like, hey, he should delete it, there also is the moral thing of like, okay, well, what if this person is the UK? Technically, it's legal in places like Canada. That becomes a very big problem. There is so much other stuff that is in here that the doc just straight up ignores or tries to exaggerate that I have a big problem with. These these aren't good allegations. These are like, okay, well, he's an ass. And it's like, okay, what do you want me to say? You want a cookie for that? You want me to go and say, oh my God, that means such a great thing? It's clear that Nominal may have some mental problems and that he should get help with that. But that doesn't mean that you can go and accuse him of sexual assault and try to defend that piss poor accusation that doesn't make sense in reality. That is straight up pseudoscience. It doesn't mean you can go and try to say that this is grooming when you don't actually have a grooming allegation. So then you had to say, well, there's other types of grooming. Okay, well, it's not a good grooming allegation. There's no such thing as grooming into you being your friend. That's just called making friends. It's such a poor document. I wish it was better. And it makes me angry that this is the level that we have. That this is the information that we have, that this is all the victims. The best thing that they had was a person that said that he acted weird and a person that like commissioned him for something. Oh my God, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? I can't. Most of your claims are absolute nonsense. This doc feels more like it's trying to expose him because people feel like they were wronged and then they're trying to make something greater than it actually is. You want to go call him an ass? Fair enough. You want to call him that he has maybe anger problems? Fair enough. There's probably other mental illnesses there. But to go and try to continue to push the definitely false sexual assault allegations and try to spread misinformation of what hypnosis is, go and try to push the harassment allegations, which don't make any sense because that's not what harassment is. Go and try to imply things with minors that he never did. Go and try to do stuff with the saying that he's weird and therefore it equals grooming. It's just such a piss poor document. It's trying to use a bunch of buzzwords to go and conflate a bunch of ideas and then act like it means something. There was no grooming. There was no harassment. There was no sexual assault. Like I said in my previous one, I'll say it over and over again. He's weird. Maybe you can call him an ass. That's as far as it goes. That's as far as the doc shows the information, but then tries to spin it in a different way. Don't let people like this fool you. But anyway, my name is TRG. I'm dying of sickness. Bye-bye.